we've got this thing where the government was in the room with a bunch of people, including an awful lot of people from the industry, but sitting in the room deciding what are we going to do with aged care, okay? They've heard all the proposals, and then they write it up into the report, and then they leaked the report in December, and then they hid the report in January, and they hid the report in February, and they wouldn't tell anyone about it before Dunkley, and now here we are a little of the way into March, and they've released it, but they aren't commenting on which bits of this process they're going to try to put in place. Now, they've already said up front, no changes when it comes to the family home. Good, tick, excellent. But the day-by-day expenses, the bonds, all of these other systems that everyone who has had to go through that system or tried to get a family member into it understands that's the devil of the detail, right? But Annika Wells, of course, has come up with the Stephen Conroy defence here as to why, despite the fact she was in the room, put the report together, read the report, has not released the report, somehow it's all somebody else's fault. And guess who that might be? Roll the tape.
Oh.
I mean, there were 22 reports into aged care under the previous government. This really is the funding of aged care, a can that has been long kicked down the road. It has been something that has been put off for decades and decades by government, but this is a government that is taking it on.
Decades and decades.
Wasn't there a Rudd Gillard and maybe even a Hawke Keating in those decades?
No. It's only the Liberal Party here. Yeah. But let's get to this here. We all understand a need for a system that has any federal funding in it. Yep. We know the population's going to grow. We know more people are going to go into it. But how is it possible that the government that's been through all this process, through all that time, hasn't got a response to a report it was in the room while it was written?
Well, Annika Wells was chairing for a start, so she was driving.
So it's her committee.
The whole thing. It's her committee, it's her report, and she's taken months and months to put a response to it, which isn't even a response. And I think, we need to look at this sensibly because aged care is problematic in this country, but we do know that there's a lot of aged care providers who are making a great living out of providing aged care, yet aged care homes are not necessarily the standard that we need them to be at. And I certainly, many of us and your viewers would have had parents in those situations or potentially partners and seen how heartbreaking it can be. I don't know whether this government is capable of thinking through unintended consequences. So if you're saying if you've got all this money in the bank or you've got money in super or you've got shares, guess what? The bank of mum and dad might come to the fore buying you a house a little bit earlier if that's the case as we go forward to diminish their own superannuation nest eggs or their own asset holdings if they're going to be forced to be having to stump up. But these are also a lot of the people that have paid a lot of money in tax as they've gone through their life. They've invested well, they've saved, they've put money aside. And a lot of people don't want to go into aged care until they need that full-time support and assistance.
Yeah, so we're talking about a lot of the home packages. And as we've showed you before, right, complaints about the home packages are now level with the institutional care or facilities, whatever the polite language is that we have these days. But, Stephen, what is inevitably complicated here is the politics, right? Because if you make a decision about anything into the future, you have to automatically go, well, okay, where's the line and who gets affected by it? Now, you remember in 2019, the conversation was, despite the fact that the policy of Bill Shorten on negative gearing was, everyone who's got it, okay, we're drawing a line, but people were considering and reacted to what might happen forward. Anyone who is in their 50s right now, let alone 60s and 70s or 80s, they will be looking at this going, hang on, I made a whole series of bets on how much money I need. You can't move the goalposts.
Look, I think firstly, Hollie made a number of very good points.
Agreed.
I think this unfortunately has, governments of both political persuasions going back in time have not been able to solve this problem. I think the report deserves to be read, consumed, digested and debated. I would hope, given that this has been a problem that's bedevilled both political parties, that there is a capacity. I'm going to be an optimist tonight, Paul, not often, more of a cynic and a realist, but tonight I want to be an optimist about this. I would hope that given both sides have been unable to, with their own thinking separately, find the right solution, that they can actually work together on a package of reforms that they both agree on, they both take responsibility for, and put that in place. If both sides want to descend on politics, I fear that this one is going to be one of those ones that continues to, going forward, be troublesome. So I want to be an optimist tonight. I know that will come as a shock, but I think Hollie made a lot of good points, and I think the only solution here is if the smartest people on both sides sit down and work their way through it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality here is there are always issues that are war cabinet level issues where it's not about Team Red, Team Blue, because everyone's going to have the same problem, right?
Yep.
I think NDI is a perfect
Yep.
example, right? Now, obviously, when you're the one that's in government, you go, well, okay, let's all sit around because you're the one that's going to get the final say. If you actually create a scenario where it is the smartest from everywhere and we get to a solution that we all agree to and we all have ownership in, and I hold you back from your worst idea, you hold me back from my worst idea, then yes, that's a spirit that I think everyone would agree something like this should be dealt with. But let's end on the nice note.
Can I give you an example, just really quickly?
Sure.
So my
You
mum...
apologise to Nigel. Nigel's the one waiting in London.
My mum, before she went into full-time care, dementia, was living with my dad, needed substantial supports at home. He needed help to care for her. My brothers and I divvied up when we finally got her the aged care, my home care plan. We divvied up all the things that she had been given funding for. Yep. We called every provider we could to see between us. My brothers and I got back together for dinner. Every single person we spoke to said, has she got a full home care package? And we said, no, she's only been allocated each one. They said, well, when she's got her full home care package, then we'll be interested in talking to you. Right. Now, Mum, she went downhill to the... Thankfully, we had aged care, fully supported living as part of that. But this is part of the problem. And I think running aged care in the same way as NDIS, actually there's some things that they could learn from each other that I think would be helpful.
I have a little feeling that we should be having a much longer, more detailed conversation, and I'll find a special way to do it.